Good morning, everyone. Today I'm honored to be joined by Miss Dolores Boucher. Miss Boucher is a retired public elementary school teacher with an impressive 40 years of experience in education. She spent 20 of those years as a librarian, and later in her career, due to budget cuts, she would be tasked with managing 2 different elementary school libraries simultaneously. Throughout her long career, Miss Boucher has been a passionate advocate for children's literature, hosting the annual Scholastic Book Fair at her school to encourage both students and parents to engage more with reading and each other. A lifelong reader herself, Miss Boucher's dedication to fostering a love of books in young learners is truly inspiring. Thank you, Miss Boucher, for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Outstanding. For today's interview, we'll be discussing the topic of books being adapted into movies. It's a subject that often sparks lively debates within the reading community, and I personally have my own thoughts on it, but today we're here to hear from the experts. Without further ado, let's begin. Question 1. In your opinion, which book-to-film adaptations have been the most faithful, and which ones have strayed the farthest from its source material?
As a children's librarian, I have to say that children's books have been the most faithful, probably because they're the easiest ones to replicate. The ones that are farthest from the truth are adult fiction.
All right. Yeah, now that I think about that, that definitely, makes sense. In adult novels and books, there's a lot more commentary, a lot more discussion, a lot more thoughts being discussed as opposed to children's books, which might be a little easier to adapt, say like Dr. Seuss, where they put pretty much the book in the movie. But yeah, thank you. All right. Question 2. Do you prefer when a movie adaptation of a book is made soon after the book's release, or do you think it's better to wait a bit so that the material has time to breathe before being adapted?
I think doing the movie after the book is fine. I don't think it matters that they've waited to do it. It's the same material that's being made into a movie, so I don't think that time factor really matters.
Okay. Interesting response. I would also agree with that. For question 3, how do you feel about directors adding their own creative twists or interpretations to the story of a book? Does this enhance the experience, or does it feel like a betrayal of the original material?
That is a very interesting question. There are a few adult novels that have been made into movies that are much better than the book, but not usually the case. For example, Forrest Gump was a great book, but the movie was spectacular because of the actors they chose for the characters, and it also came out with a great soundtrack, which really enhanced the whole experience of the story.
Very well. Yeah, I didn't even know there was a book to the movie Forrest Gump, but now that I do, I'll have to read it because that is one of my all-time favorite movies. All right. Question number 5. Do you think certain genres are better suited for adaptation into films, or can any type of book be successfully translated to the screen with the right approach?
I think any book can be made into a film.
Yeah.
With the right approach, which is sometimes very difficult to do.
Probably depends a lot on the director that
Exactly.
they pick for the movie.
Yes.
That probably is what makes or breaks it. Some do a great job and some just almost ruin it.
Right.
All right. So for question number 6, have you ever watched a movie adaptation of a book that you felt was better than the original novel? If so, what made it stand out?
All right, so that goes back to Forrest Gump, which was, a prize-winning book and movie, but the movie was so much better.
All right. Yeah, for my opinion on that, what I have to reference would be the book Hoot. I remember reading it in school, and then they all took us to go watch it in theaters. It was a big deal because Hoot was made and shot here in Florida, based all around Florida wildlife and whatnot. And I do remember that long ago, back to middle school, and I would say that's one of the cases where they did a great job keeping the movie close to the book. And of course, movies always a little bit better because it helps you with imagery if you don't have imagination. So I would definitely.
That's a good point, because imagination has a lot to do with the outcome of the movie. Some people have great imaginations, and when they read a book, they can picture everything in their mind. So if they watch the movie and it's not quite like the book, they're disappointed. But if it's someone who does not have a really active imagination,
Right.
then the movie will help them understand so much better. They'll get, visual where they couldn't do that on their own.
Gotcha. Oh, I guess that's why they say imagination is so important.
That's right.
All right. Moving to question number 7. What do you think is the biggest challenge when adapting a book into a film? Is it staying true to the source material or making it accessible to a wider audience?
Well, I think that depends on the director, what they want the outcome to be. Do they want to make a lot of money? Then they're going to make the movie what they feel a larger audience would like. But if they're making a movie to stay true to the book, then I don't think it's that hard to do. It's just a matter of what their final outcome wants to be.
Okay, yeah, I can see what you're saying. And for an example, if you were to read the Lord of the Rings books and then watch the movie, of course there's going to be added effects in the movie. I mean, the whole point now that I think of movies is to help people that lack imagination. I think if everyone had an imagination, movies might be obsolete. But yeah, Hollywood definitely has to do their role in keeping the viewer, who is already struggling to have an imagination to begin with, interested in the movie. So yeah, it's a really, I think it's a fine line to try and walk, because if you stay too close to the book, people might not think the movie's good because it doesn't have all the extra effects into it, but at the same time, you don't want to ruin the storyline too much. So I definitely agree with that. And for our 8th and final question, do you think a film adaptation can ever truly capture the depth of a book, or do you believe there are always elements that will inevitably be lost in translation?
I think that a good adaptation can capture the depth of a book. It, again, depends on the director and who they choose for the actors, where they place the setting, how much of the narrative they keep, how much they make up. But sometimes it's a good thing to see a movie if you haven't read the book. I'm thinking especially of children and young adults. It's sometimes hard to get them interested in reading a book, especially a chapter book. But if they can watch a movie that closely resembles the book, then at least they've gotten that experience of the story and the author, and perhaps it will encourage them to explore further that particular author, or even prompt them to read the book.
Very well. Yeah. I would also have to agree with that and say that's happened to me. I think that's how I got into reading, was from watching all these movies and then hearing everyone talk about the books, and just the curiosity in me. Still have a lot to read, but yeah, I just really thank you for coming here today and answering all of my questions. I think it's a very important topic within the book community, especially when we get our answers from someone with such experience as yourself. I think all in all, we can say that it's all up to the director when it comes to turning a book into a movie, and also the target audience as well. But anyways, Ms. Boucher, I would like to once again say thank you for being here today. And if you have any advice for young readers out there, please let us know what it is.
Just keep reading. Just keep reading. If you are reading a book that you are not interested in, you're not enjoying it, put it down. Don't be forced to finish a book just because you want to finish the book. There are so many books and so little time that you have to keep exploring until you find the genre that you're interested in. You'll find an author that you want to read all of their books, like
Gary Paulson?
Gary Paulson.
Oh yeah,
Perfect
big
example.
Gary Paulson fan. And the movies are good in those as well.
Yes, and if you read the book, you're excited to see the movie. If you see the movie, you can't wait to read the book, and then you want to read the next one and the next
It starts
one.
a circle of reading and then comparing.
And probably develop a lifelong reader, and there's nothing better in the world than that.
Well, folks, I could not agree more. I think that's all the time we have for today. Signing off, Evan and Miss Boucher. Goodbye.